So today I want to show you guys my really horribly cable managed and pretty disgusting, but it still works pretty well for old games, gaming rig. This thing is kind of a 2008 build. It's running a Radeon, I think 4870 Dark Knight. It's running an N-Force SLI motherboard. It's running an AMD Athlon 64 X2. And it's got one of the first Antec modular power supplies, still running serial ATA for hard drive and optical drives, so not super duper out of date. But what I'm getting at today is, for fun, I actually bought I think it's the first ATi PCI Express graphics card, which is an X600 XT, and I think it's a 256 megabyte DDR1 graphics card. I don't remember what bin I put it in though. Let me see, there it is. So this guy, let me yank it out of the bag here and then we'll take a look at it. So here it is. This thing launched in, I think, 2005. It was sold in AGP and PCI Express variants. I went with the PCI Express one because I kind of wanted to do a quick little test with vintage hardware to see just how much difference there was in era to era. Because this card is about 2005, the 48 whatever in there is 2007, 2008. I've actually got a 6850 here. I've got a 7770 that I'll dig out and shove in here as well. And then, where is it? Back here, I've got an RX 570 that we can jam in there as well to kind of represent a mid-range card from a bunch of different eras, because the 570 is basically a 470. That's a 2-year-old card, so we're talking 2016. I don't really have a good sample from 2014, but the 2012 sample I think is pretty accurate with that 7770. So here's the computer I'm going to be using for these tests, and I don't really know what I have for period games. I'll kind of have to look in the library and see what came out when. And maybe I'll try a couple things from 2008-ish, maybe even like Far Cry or something like that, or Crysis. And then I'll try something from maybe the 2016 era. So not sure exactly what that'll entail. Maybe Grand Theft Auto 5 or something like that. It's a Windows 7 machine, so it should be able to run all of the titles that we've got. But I'll open this thing up and we'll take a look. It's got the most serious case of GPU sag I've. Just look at that Radeon. When I first got this card, it actually wouldn't even post properly, and I figured it was because of just how tweaked it was, but eventually I got it going again. It runs on two 6-pin PCIe's. It was caked with dust, just like pretty much all of the hardware in this computer. Pardon me, excuse me. It actually came in an Antec P180B, which is my favorite chassis of 2006, but it was really, really damaged in shipping. So I put it in my old Antec 900, which is my old standby here, a couple of 120 gigabyte serial ATA hard drives, a couple of optical drives, and then it has 6 gigabytes in dual channel. It's got two 2 gig modules and two 1 gig modules, respectively. I forget what it is. I think it's Patriot something or other DDR2. It's a pretty decent memory. And then, of course, this Asus M2N32 SLI Deluxe motherboard. Really, really cool. I'm actually looking to see if I can find some 8800 GTXs. I would love to put those in SLI on this board and then do the same tests later as well. But we'll see. Again, the cable management is crap in here. I could have used some zip ties and made it nicer, but there's no space behind the motherboard on a chassis this old. So just not much I can do, and I also don't really care because I just use it for like Diablo 2 and StarCraft and things like that. So here is the test bench we're going to be running with, and yeah, that's about it. So I have the X600 XT installed in the rig, and we are currently getting some old drivers for it so I can get recognized. But I went ahead and pulled up my Phenom 2X6 up here, and I ripped the 7770 out of it. That was the first more modern graphics card I actually bought. This is the only one in the bunch I didn't buy actually back in period. So yeah, this card was introduced in early 2008. This one's from mid 2008. It is 512 megs of amazingly GDDR5 still. It's a 4870, I think that's right. 4870, yep. And the I/O on it, even though the board is prepped for HDMI, it doesn't have HDMI. It's got two dual-link DVIs, and then it's got a composite S-video out. Moving to 2011, we've got this Radeon HD 6850, so I skipped the 5000 series cards entirely, apparently. Maybe I'll get one at some point, but I did buy this card brand new. Here we see two DVIs, one dual link, one single link, an HDMI, and for the first time a display port, which is kind of nice to see. That has a gigabyte of GDDR5 in it, also a little bit faster core clock. Moving up just 1.5 years to late 2012, early 2013, which is when I got this one. This is actually marked week 38 of 2012, so pretty late. And for the record, with ATi cards, if you find that little digital code there, that means 31 week of 2011. So I guess that's only about a year newer. This 7770, apparently I got impatient. And it's a bigger number, so it's got to be better, right? So this went to a single dual-link DVI-D, an HDMI, and two mini display ports. So kind of just reconfubling things a little bit. Also has a gigabyte of GDDR5 in it. Probably a little faster. We'll look it up. I remember when I actually swapped from this to this in my computer, a lot of my gaming performance went down. So maybe it isn't as fast. And then here we've got a modern card. So we'll call this 2018. It's a ATi Radeon RX 570, 4 gigabyte. So kind of the crappier of the two versions. And these are all very representative of mid-range cards from back in the day. This was maybe a little more on the high-end side of mid-range. This was pretty mid-range. This is very mid-range, and this is, again, very mid-range. Maybe a little on the higher-end side. So we'll kind of compare this and the RX 570 to being maybe a little above the 50% marker. So this card's got two display ports, an HDMI, actually two HDMIs, and a DVI-D dual link. It's kind of nice to see the dual link DVI still on this. Power requirements, we have a single 8-pin here, a single 6-pin here, single 6-pin here, dual 6-pin here, and the X600 XT has no extra power requirement at all. So it should be an interesting enough comparison, I'd say. I'm going to get the drivers installed, find out what software I want to actually compare them with, and then we'll sort of get going. Yeah. Okay, well I got 3D Mark 06 installed. We're going to go ahead and run it. Oh, here we go. We finally actually got a result. So 325 is our 3D Mark 06 score with the Radeon X600 XT 128. It was pretty choppy to watch, about 1 FPS in a lot of the tests. So not that surprising with a core clock of 400 megahertz, but yeah. Man, this thing knows a lot about the computer, though. Good job. So yeah, there we go. CPU score 1,753, SM 2.0 score 149, HDR SM3 score 0, because it didn't run any of the tests because it's not compatible. So yeah, this is a garbage GPU, but it's a nice baseline for us to start from. 10... Ooh, not good. Well, you know, okay, it'll be a good test for it. Interesting that these cutscenes are rendered. I never would have thought that. This is pulling through my Elgato HD60S into my Threadripper. I've got the display actually mirroring on an LCD here too. Yeah, not super great. But again, we're running it at 720p, which for the time was pretty high res. So 23 FPS, not great, but I've seen worse. Just look at that water, okay? In 2004, that absolutely blew my mind. Anyway, okay, so yeah, we're getting heavy textures, we're getting like 15 FPS. In a dungeon, so we'll say, well, to be nice to it, we'll say it's getting 17 FPS. Well, GPU test 1 is, we'll call it done. I decided not to run Counter-Strike just because of how long the benchmarking would have taken, and it's a curiosity thing. So we have a decent starting point that we can measure from on this machine moving forward to our next cards. So the X600 XT 128 DDR is out. Next up, we're going to throw in the 4870 512 meg. So this thing should be a lot faster. And I mean, just look at the form factor difference in these two mid-range cards. 2004, 2008. That's kind of incredible. This is a 2012 card, so that's 4 years in front of this. And this is actually about 4 years ahead of that. So I'd say the biggest leap is still right here. Because, I mean, there's 8 years between the RX 570 and this 48 series card. So I'm going to dump this thing in next, plug in the two 6-pin PCI-E connectors, fire it up, and we'll do some benchmarking. Okay, the tests culminated. They took a lot longer because they did the HDR SM 3.0 graphics test as well. However, most of the frame rates I was seeing are about 20 times what it was on the X600 XT. So yeah, there was apparently a really, really big leap in graphics card performance from 2004 to 2008. I know that's a surprise to nobody, and I'll be equally curious. Oh, doesn't like that driver apparently. Anyway, valid result it says. So 7,529. So we got about the same CPU score, but the graphics score, we have an HDR SM 3.0 score of 4,551, and looks like our SM 2.0 score went up to 2,813. So we were definitely GPU limited before. The CPU score is actually pretty low. I would like to see that considerably higher. This isn't exactly a high-end CPU, even from back in the day. It's a 4800 plus. I think it's 2.7 gigahertz or something. Anyway, I'm going to overclock it now and run the test again and see if we can get better than that 7529. There we go. Oh, wow. So, yeah, we were seeing, what, like 15 frames a second with the X600. And this is, again, running 720p, 32-bit color. Okay, so... so we're getting 180 FPS here. Oh, 70. Slow as I saw it there. I'm still going to go ahead and call this 170 FPS. So we were doing 15 frames a second, and now we're doing 100. And again, the water looks really, really good. For 2004, that was amazing. So I guess I'll get out of it now, but yeah, this is actually still a pretty impressive card. I might open a modern title on this and just see what it looks like, because I am blown away by the performance here. Okay, so I opened up a modern but not terribly stressful game. This is my simmer car. It is running at the medium setting. It's called good, but it's VSync turned off, so we're not limited on frame rate. And we're running 720p, which is really, really common for a PC of this era, and that's also the LCD that I have hooked up through the capture card. So we're gonna give it a go. This actually, I wouldn't call this playable, but like if you were motivated, you could physically play this game, which is really, really incredible. So there you go, a modern but not very demanding title at 720p. So it's not a strong performer per se, but the fact that it's able to run it at all, like it has all the correct protocols and everything, is kind of impressive to me. Okay, so it's supposed to be loading our... Okay, good. I keep seeing that driver has not been tested or approved thing, but that is, again, quite a bit better. I think our last score was 7,300, now we're at 9,214. CPU score is actually brought up by the better GPU, so we're at 1450 or something before on the CPU, and now we're at 1755. I don't remember the other two scores. I feel like the 2.0 score is about the same, or maybe worse, but the 3.0 score is considerably better. So yeah, there's that. I am just going to try overclocking it a bit now and running that test again and see if we can get even a little bit better. Okay, so we're starting it with the 6850. And okay. I can't actually remember what we were getting with the 4870, but this seems pretty good. And honestly, certain parts of this game sure do look dated, but I gotta say, I'm impressed. You think of what the landscape looked like in 2004, it's like just garbage. Okay, yeah, I think we were getting like 150 FPS, so this is definitely a marked improvement. This is playing pretty smooth. So 140. I think we were getting like 90 before, so this is a very, very significant improvement still. Okay. Okay, my summer car. How we doing? We've got exactly the same frame rate. The performance is exactly, well, okay, maybe it's 2 frames per second better than the 4870. And drum roll. 9127. Okay, so it brought the CPU score up. Interesting. So this pretty much tied the 6850. I'm gonna overclock the 7770 now and try again. There we go. 140. So it is a little bit slower. That's interesting. Okay, how we gonna be at? One frame better than the 6850. Well, the newer 3D Mark benchmarks actually run. I mean, it's not smooth, but honestly, this is a pretty modern benchmark, and it's running very, very well. So this is like a cumulative total of maybe $80 in hardware running here. And there's our score. I don't remember. I just built a Ryzen 3 rig with a 570. I'll have to compare it later. I'll let you guys know how it compares. I'm also going to run Skydiver and CloudGate. I think I've got recent benchmarks with a medium grade $400-ish new computer that I want to compare it to. The CloudGate benchmark is, I swear you could run this on a smartphone, but still worth doing. I have a data point. Just as a reference, CloudGate 4124. Gonna move on to the RX 570 now. Okay, Far Cry is giving us 280 FPS. Barely playable. Really would be better with 400 or 500 FPS. I think I'm CPU limited because the last 3 graphics cards I've tested, we've been at 150 FPS here. Okay, yeah, we're definitely CPU limited.